I want to be looking in just a few minutes in Daniel chapter 1. Daniel chapter 1, but I'm glad that we've got a bunch of young people in here today, because I've got something I want to tell y'all. I've got something I want to tell your parents, and I got something I want to tell your grandparents. I want you to understand that I'm coming from a unique perspective. I'm a father of 5. I'm a grandfather of 8. I'm a former law enforcement officer. I'm also a former principal of a school. Now, I know that looks like leaving a vampire in charge of the blood bank. I realize that. But I was. And I was also a youth pastor at a very large church for a number of years. Actually, I've done it in 3 churches. So what I'm telling you this morning is the truth. I've seen it all. I'm like that insurance company. I know a few things because I've seen a few things. But I want everyone to hear this and think upon it as soberly as you know how. But I'm here to tell you right now that the world wants your children. Right. The devil is hot after them as hard as he can go. He's got everything every gun at his disposal to trap your children. He's got Hollywood, who is now pushing pedophilia as being normal. They are. And pretty soon, the American Psychiatric Association is going to do the same. They're gearing up for it now. The music industry, and I'm not saying by any means music is bad. Don't even go there. But the music industry wants your children. The modern educational system, both in the lower grades all the way up through the colleges, wants your children. Let me say this. I went to public school for 12 years, and a lot of you have your children there. Be careful what your children are learning. Ask your child when they come home, look at their lesson plans, and if there's something they're being taught that's wrong, you tell them otherwise. You do that. That's your job as a parent. I used to come home every day and my mother would look over what I was learning, and I looked at her one day in elementary school and I said, "Teacher told me that we came from apes." Y'all have heard this story many times, and it's the truth. She said, "Oh no, son, that's a lie. You're Irish. And your ancestors never swung by their tails, but many of them did by their necks." I went back the next day and told the teacher that, and she didn't think it was very funny. I did. I told her that. But be careful what your child is seeing and hearing, and they're being flooded by it. Every child that has a smartphone or an Android phone, 90% of them have seen pornography already. I don't care if they're 8 years old, they've seen it. And pornography rewires the brains of young people to where it is exceedingly difficult to shake that addiction, even older people. And it gives them a different perspective on life, on relationships, and it will ruin them ever for marriage if they continue to view that garbage. It's taken the world by storm. Even liberal churches are grabbing our children. I was looking at a bunch of young preachers online yesterday, and they were wishing away every miracle that ever has been done, and they'd go, "In this dispensation, we don't have that any longer." Y'all need to come to Solid Rock then. We'll show you what a miracle looks like. That's the most ridiculous thing. And these dead churches or telling our children that, and then they wonder why they don't come back. When your child comes to church, they need to see something that's real, something that's powerful, not some icicle standing behind a pulpit preaching God's funeral every Sunday morning. Lord have mercy. We need a change. Children need to realize that God is real, that His Word is real, that God is still in the miracle business. He's still in the supernatural business. And He is. I'll tell you why the devil's so hot after your kids. Because the devil is smart enough to know that God wants to bring a revival through those young people. Young people, let me tell y'all something. Y'all have the ability that if you follow God and you do what is right with Him, He can bring about a revival that's bigger than any rock concert you've ever seen. He can do marvelous and wonderful things through you, no matter how young or how old or how stupid you might think you are. Don't let nobody ever tell you that. You can do mighty things for God. You don't have to be an athlete. You don't have to be a college graduate. All of those things are great, but God can use you just like you are to bring about a revival, and He wants to, and the devil knows it, and he's trying to stop it, so he's pulled out all stops right now, and he's trying everything he can to shut y'all down. But here's the thing, moms and dads and grandparents, it's your job to mentor these children. It's your job to get them under the preaching of the Word, to pray with your child, to study the Bible with your child, to teach your child. Because if you don't, the devil will. Mark my words on that. I have seen it all. And if moms and dads and grandparents don't get involved and start telling their child about Jesus at an early age, you're going to lose them. And the world and the devil is going to get them. What I'm going to read to you is a true account, a true story of 4 teenage boys. They were real young, and they were captured, and they were taken hundreds of miles from their home. And they had no parents anymore. They had no friends. They had nobody. And they were left alone and they were being raised by the enemy. But these young people had been taught by their parents. They knew all about God and about the power of God. And they're going to stand up against all of these wicked people, and they're going to win. In Daniel chapter 1, it says, in the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, came Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon. That was an evil country. And he came to Jerusalem and besieged it. He circled it around and he starved them out until they gave up. And the Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand with the vessels of the house of God, which he carried into the land of Shinar to the house of his God, and brought the vessels into the treasure house of his God. These evil people took the things that belonged in the house of God, the real God, and they took it away and they put it in the temple of a false God. And right now this world is doing the same thing. This world is telling our young people and telling our adults that the things that are good and decent are evil and bigoted. And they're telling the things that are evil and perverted and horrible that it's a good thing. Well, I didn't come riding in here this morning on the back of a cabbage truck, so they're not going to fool me. And I pray they don't fool you either. And when the king got these captives, these teenage boys, he spoke to Ashpenaz, the master of his eunuchs that were in charge of taking care of these boys, that he should bring certain of the children of Israel and of the king's descendants and of the princes, children in whom was no blemish, but well-favored and skilled in wisdom and cunning and knowledge and understanding science, and such as had ability in them to stand in the king's palace, in whom they might teach the learning and the tongue of the Chaldeans. The king had these boys put aside to train them to become a good Babylonian. He wanted to teach them about his false god and their false ways and the horrible things that they did in that country. But it was going to take a good while to indoctrinate them. They were going to try to do it for 3 years and then bring them back to the king. And so the king appointed them a daily provision of the king's food and of the wine which he drank. And so nourishing them for 3 years, that at the end thereof they could stand in front of the king. Now among these were 4 teenage boys, and they came from Judah, part of Israel. Their names was Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. And all of their names meant something about God. And it said, unto whom the prince of the eunuchs gave names. He changed their name. How would you like to be captured, taken away from your parents, sent to a foreign country, and then they take your name away from you and give you some other ridiculous name? And they were only teenagers. And he gave unto Daniel the name of Belteshazzar, and that is a name that reflects the god Baal that they worshipped. And to Hananiah of Shadrach, and to Mishael of Meshach, and Azariah of Abednego, and all of those new names meant something about the false gods that they worshiped. So they tried to take their identity from them. They tried to take what they had learned from their parents about worshiping God, to take that away from them. And they were going to train them in the ways of the Chaldeans and the Babylonians, but they did not realize who they were messing with. They had no idea that these teenage boys were grounded in their faith. Thank God for the parents that raised these 4 boys, because they knew exactly what they believed, and they weren't going to back up for 1 minute, and they weren't afraid, not for 1 single minute. But Daniel, he was their leader, purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the portion of the king's food or meat, nor with the wine which he drank. And therefore he requested of the prince of eunuchs that he might not defile himself. Young people, moms and dads, you've got to determine in your heart this morning just what you're going to do. You can't have it both ways. You can't stick your child with 1 foot in the world and 1 in the church. You've got to decide how you're going to raise your child in this world, and they've got to be in this world, and you can't take them out of this world, so they've got to be here, but you've got to learn how to shield them. You've got to learn how to protect them. You've got to learn how to raise them right and teach them about Jesus. And be careful what they do, where they go, and what they see, or it's going to defile them. It will. I never said parenting was easy. Oh, no. They were talking about driving the school bus this morning, and I told Linda and Loretta back there that I wouldn't do it for $100,000 a week no more. They're brave souls that drive that bus. Man, they ought to get paid a king's ransom for what they do. But parenting is not easy. It's tough. And you've got to be like a hawk and watch your child and see what's being put in your child's life and protect them. And that's what they did with these teenage boys. Their parents raised them right. They taught them right. They knew what they believed. And so they determined they were not going to defile themselves with the king's stuff. They weren't going to be part of the Babylonian Empire. Oh, they were there. They were living there. But they weren't going to be part of it. And you know, that's what we need to understand here. We're on this earth. We're in this world. But the Bible says we are not of this world. This is not our permanent home. We are passing through here to the time that either we die or the Lord comes and gets us and takes us home. One of the two. But this is not our world. And when we start getting so comfortable with this world, that's when all of our troubles start. Have you noticed that? Have you ever noticed that when you take your eyes off the Lord and you start getting involved with the wrong things that this world is doing, that it wrecks your life? Because you're not supposed to be part of this world. This isn't your home. You are here temporarily, and for Christians, you are ambassadors that are here for a temporary time to lead other people to the Lord. That's your job. So you won't be the only one going out of here when the Lord comes for us. We're not to get comfortable here. And boy, let me tell you, you start serving the Lord, you're going to get real uncomfortable here. Boy, it's getting quiet in here. I ain't done though. Now God brought Daniel into favor and tender love with the prince of the eunuchs. The eunuch, the guy that was in charge of watching them, really thought the world of Daniel. Really liked Daniel. Everybody liked Daniel. It's kind of like candy. Everybody likes candy. Everybody likes Donna. I got loads of enemies. Any of y'all want an extra enemy, I got some I can give you that take them a load off of me. But everybody liked Daniel. They loved Daniel. Now the prince of the eunuchs said to Daniel, I fear my lord the king, who has appointed your food and drink. So why should he see your faces worse than the children which are of your sort? You will endanger my head to the king if I don't give you this stuff. This is the rich food that the king eats, and if you don't eat it, you're going to look bad, and the king is going to cut my head off. Then said Daniel to Melzar, whom the prince of the eunuchs had set over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, prove your servants, prove us, I beseech thee, for 10 days, and let them give us pulse to eat and water to drink. Oh, that sounds like one of those keto diets. Do you know what pulse is? Beans. How would you like to eat beans every day for 10 days? We would have to postpone services. The rest of y'all, ask your parents. They were going to eat beans and water for 10 days. When they had all of this rich food and meats and wines and all that stuff that the king had. And so they told the man in charge of them, let us have that for 10 days. And then let our countenance be looked upon before thee, in the countenance of the children that eat of the portion of the king's meat. And as you see, deal with your servants. So he let them have 10 days. He gave all the rest of the captive children all of that rich food from the king. He gave them beans and water for 10 days. And at the end of the 10 days, their countenance, that means their faces and the way they looked, appeared fairer and fatter in flesh. That's back when fat was popular, people, you know. Being skinny didn't come in vogue until the 1960s. That's true. If you were fat back then, that showed you had money. I'm not going to say another word. I'm going to shut up. At the end of the 10 days, their countenances appeared fatter and fairer in flesh than all the children which did eat the portion of the king's meat. And so Melzar took away the portion of their meat and the wine that they should drink, and he gave them pulse. Now, what happened, because these young people decided they weren't going to go along with the rest of the world and do the things that the rest of the world were doing, God blessed them for it. He blessed them for it. And it said, as for these 4 children, God gave them knowledge and skill and all learning and wisdom, and Daniel had understanding in all visions and dreams. If young people, if you want to bring about a revival in this land, and that's the only hope that America has, a revival, a powerful movement toward God, you got to walk with him. You've got to walk with him. You've got to serve him. Because the Bible said that's how you get power with God. You can't just up and say, well, I'm going to help start a revival and I'm going to get power from God, and then you don't live for him and you don't serve him. That's not going to happen. And the devil is standing there pulling at you and tugging at you and shoving this at you and shoving that at you and saying, hey, try this and try that. And I can take you to the hospital and I can take you to the prisons of all the people that tried that and thought, oh, it won't get me, it won't hurt me, it won't do anything to me. That's a lie from the devil, and he tells that to all of us in one way or another. He tries to go after us at our weakness, and he tells us it's okay. It's not going to hurt anything if you do this. It's not. You're going to be fine, and it's not going to get you. You're tough, but it gets everybody. You play with a rattlesnake long enough, it will bite you. It will bite you. And so if you want power with God, if you want Him to do a great work in you, then you've got to commit yourself to Him. Moms and dads, if you want your child to have power with God, you let them see you serve God. You let them see you pray. You let them see you read the scriptures, and you share it with them. That is so important. I could bring every parent up here right now and they'd tell the same thing. Moms and dads and grandparents, you have no idea of the power that you have over those children right now. And it is up to you, because God has committed them to you. It is up to you to protect them and to watch over them and monitor what goes on in their life. And do what you can to keep Satan out of your house. And so God gave these boys knowledge and skill and learning and abilities and wisdoms. And Daniel was one who could even interpret dreams and visions. And so now at the end of the days, the 3 years are up, that the king had said he should bring these boys in. The princes of the eunuchs brought them in before King Nebuchadnezzar. And so now the king is going to examine them. And he communed with them, he talked with them, and among them was found none like Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. So therefore they stood before the king. Did you know then the Babylonian Empire, when they would capture somebody from another country and bring them in, after they kept them there for a while, they'd give them a leadership position. What is that? Keeping your friends close and your enemies closer? Is that how that works? But that's what they were doing. They would give these people positions, but they would only give it to the wisest and the brightest ones. And so if you want to make a change, that's how you do it. Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah, and Daniel got involved in the Babylonian kingdom and started changing things. But they didn't get that power. They didn't get that opportunity unless they stood their ground and did not back up for 1 inch. In all matters of wisdom and understanding that the king inquired of them, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and astrologers that were in his realm. You know why? You know what magicians and astrologers, you know where they're getting their power from? Satan. The horoscopes, the tarot cards, and the crystals, and all of this garbage that a lot of the, quite frankly, the music industry is pushing is strictly of Satan. You open the door for him to come in, and he will. And he will bring hell with him. And it'll be total chaos. Don't let the devil get a foothold in your home, because he'll come after your children in there. Don't let him get a foothold in your school. Hey, you're paying for that. You stand up and say, I don't want that in my school. You got a right to do that. Don't let nobody tell you you don't have any rights to anything. You do. And you stand your ground and say, no, that's not going to be taught to my child. Not going to allow that. You stand your ground. And you watch over your children. And you keep the devil out of everything they're involved in. And these children will walk with the Lord, and they could bring about the greatest revival this world has ever seen. A whole lot of the great revivals in history came through the young people, came right through them. They brought it in because their hearts were pure. They had more faith. So moms, dads, grandparents, begin to build that up with your child. It ain't too late. It ain't too late. You make a stand and do just like Joshua and say, as for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord. It will be a battle every day, but being a mom and dad's a battle anyway, isn't it? Wouldn't you like to see your child grow up to love the Lord? Or would you like to lose them? It's your choice. And young people, y'all need to listen to your moms and your dads and your grandparents. It's not old-fashioned or stupid or whatever to talk about Jesus, to learn about Jesus. It's the greatest thing you'll ever do. I've been there. I've seen it. And I'm here to tell you there is no hope for this country outside of Jesus himself. All the other things that we get involved in won't matter to a hill of beans when we stand before God one day. None of it. He doesn't care. He doesn't care what kind of talent you have and what you've accomplished in the way of this or way of that. He wants to know, what did you do with my son? That's all that matters in the scheme of things. So mom and dads, future moms and dads, grandparents, be purposed in your heart that you won't defile yourself with the world's meat and the world's drink. And show that example to your young people. Let's pray.